Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video with Swaggle Haas. Don't make any sudden moves. Everything seems to be somewhat stable, and now is the hard part as we begin our climb on the wall of worry. Yes, folks, that is right. It is December, which means we have an update for the month of November for our comic book index. The video series that every time you see it pop up on your YouTube recommendations, you let out a collective, oh man, I want to see comic books. Well, there you go. Neil Adams and Bernie Wrightson. Last one you're going to see today, folks, because we got to do our homework and talk about where we are in the current state of the market. But, of course, before I get into it, if you guys could like, comment, subscribe, I would appreciate it. Helps support the channel, doing those things. Let us get into this video here today. Now, of course, you guys know what it is by now, but in case you don't, this is the comic book index. I take the top 100 sold books per age, silver, bronze, and copper. I pick the highest volume of grade that is sold, and that's the one that I count. I take the final sale of each month, aka the market close, and I get all of my info off of GPA data to calculate our numbers, which is to say, if I was going to pick the top 100 most popular, in-demand, highest volume of sales books per month, and I wanted to buy them all, how much would it cost month after month? Well, last month we were at the Silver Age Index here in October at the $40,537 range. Of course, that thumbnail had the dramatic, the crash is in, because that was one of the biggest drops we have seen within the last calendar year. And the big story out of that was that we finally broke through to the 2020 value range, dropping below that of December of 2020, which was always one of the things that we were curious to see if when we got there, what was that going to do for the value range of comic books? Well, we have to find out where we actually went in November, and surprisingly, we actually had a little bit of a bounce back up, jumping up to the $42,977 range. Now, you could look at this number in many different ways. Perhaps this is a dead cat bounce. Perhaps we went a little bit too low and we should be, sort of averaging these last 2 months. Or we can think of it as that 2020 December price really is a resistance level for our comic book index here. Again, the theory I've thrown out in other videos is that, that was at the time when comic book levels were normal. A lot of comic book collectors were already paying those prices at that time. And then even with the COVID money, you also saw an influx of new comic book collectors into the hobby. And even with the money getting pulled out and the churn that we've seen over the last couple of years, there's more people collecting today than there were back in 2020. So just by sheer volume of people that are collecting, the numbers are going to be higher and they're going to stay higher above that level. But before we really unpack it, let's move forward now to the Bronze Age Index. Back in October, we were at the $37,377 range, had a slight uptick than the prior month of September at $36,198. But again, that was the second lowest number that the index had seen in the last few years or so. Now, a little bit of a caveat here. When I went back in to update the November numbers, I actually noticed a few mistakes on GPA in double checking my work. So I had to adjust the number. So although it still was up last month, it wasn't as big as the $37,000 price point. But let me table that and update you guys for the month of November. And here we are at the $36,237 range, a very, very slight drop from last month, which had a very, very slight uptick from the month prior to that, which effectively to me says that, here in these last 3 months, we've sort of been in that push category, moving sideways sort of chart. And that is really interesting because, again, as I've titled this video here today, the wall of worry might start to be on the horizon in these next few months. But let's finish it out here before I really start to give the, bear and bull case. Of course, for the Copper Age back in October of 2023, we were at the $23,995 level. That was the yearly low and the 3-year low for that particular index. Well, where did we go here in the month of November? Well, we actually slid a little bit further down, 23,653. Once again, the new calendar low and also the 3-year low for this index. But one of the things about the Copper Age index that is really interesting is that you can see that the Copper Age actually got inflated before the comic book boom and before before that of the Bronze and Silver Age, really started to jump in the summer of 2020. And I think that had to do a lot with the pop culture aspect. And again, one thing to consider with the Copper Age Index is that I haven't been as convinced that it has consistent year-over-year returns, due to the rate of inflation that I have been able to track with the Silver and Bronze Age. But regardless, here are the three side-by-side graphs. Again, we have been bleeding out over the course of 2023, but here we are, we're seeing a little bit of an uptick in the Silver Age, a little bit of stability in the Bronze Age, and a little bit of still, squeezing out some of that froth in the Copper Age. But let me give you guys these numbers and breakdowns, and then we'll really get into the meaty stuff later on in the video. For the Silver Age in October, we were at 40,537. In November, 42,977, an increase of 5%. October Bronze Age, we were at 37,377. November, 36,237, a decrease of 3%. And then for the Copper Age, now at 23,653, also a decrease of 2%. But, it is sort of my opinion that, if you're at that 2-3% range, I mean, there is a little bit of a margin for error there. I could very easily call those number of differences a push, but where's the fun in that? We need to be a little more dramatic for the video. Silver book value key takeaways, 13% down, which is actually a big improvement from where we were last month, where we had a really big down month where I believe 19% of the books were actually down. And as a result of that down month, we actually had 17% go up this month. One of the biggest jumps we've actually seen with the comic book index, 17% is quite a lot of books having bigger numbers in November than they did in October. We still have a very high non-sale factor at the 30% mark. And again, I think that is really an indication of demand because, like I always say, these are books that are available. They're out there. You can find them on eBay. They're key books that are very well known, but just not a lot of people willing to, quote unquote, buy it now and actually take that jump onto the book. And I do think that when that number starts to shrink down, that really is the thing that's going to push the graph way up because that will be an indication that demand for comic books is very, very high. Now, bronze book values, 15% down, kind of an average number that we see in a month-to-month, 10% up and 9% non-sale. So pretty even compared to that of the last month, which is why the bronze book value is virtually the same. Now, here is where it starts to get really, really juicy with the month by month. We have been talking about, the cyan line, that is the 2023 graph, and how October, was basically showing us that down month. So far, we've matched everything that we've seen in 2022. I mean, if you look at the graphs, they are virtually the same. So it would have stand to reason that November was also going to be a down month, but we actually saw a bit of a resistance. The 2023 numbers are unwilling to make the full cross with the yellow line, which is the 2020 values. And December tends to be that of an up month for the comic book index. At least that's what we've seen, in these previous 5 to 6 years or so. So I would suspect that, December will be another up month as well. A lot of people looking to write off those capital gains, a lot of people looking to buy Christmas presents for people. So I have to assume that there's going to be, a decent amount of comic book purchases in December. And again, that could be starting to push us to the wall of worry. Well, here you see the comic book trend line. Comic book trend line, of course, is not drawn to scale, but where we are basically, within this last 6 months or so is virtually in line to the trend of what we've been doing since 2018. So, the trend line is only the trend line until it's not. I mean, if everything goes to zero tomorrow, then we're going to have a new trend line to draw and to look at. But for now, it feels like we are right where we need to be. And you can feel fairly confident that if you're buying books within this level value range, you're pretty much right in line to where everything should be without this crazy COVID money. Now, I have to always show this chart because I think it is the most interesting, the psychology of the investor. Now, a lot of people said that maybe we were in the despair phase. Maybe we actually haven't hit the despair phase yet. I don't really know. I mean, it's up to you guys. I mean, I'm just kind of presenting you the information. You guys have to determine whether you or not you think things are going to get worse. But if we are not in the despair phase, if we've already hit our despair phase and we are actually in the return to the mean, I actually think now that we're kind of looking at the left side of the graph where we're re-entering that stealth phase. I called this video the wall of worry. And for you guys, if you don't know, the wall of worry is that moment coming off of the bear market where everybody thinks, okay, I think things are okay. I guess I'm going to buy a couple stocks here. Okay, I guess it's going up. I guess I'm going to buy a couple more. And you keep just, very, very concerned because you're so damaged from all of the capitulation that recently just happened. And I actually think that we're going to to be living in that stealth phase for the top half of 2024. But of course, we got to finish out this video with the bear and the bull case, where we are in the comic book market, what is going on. Does anybody buy comic books anymore? Is Swaggle now on Team Moon Boys, or is he still on Team Bear Bros? Well, I got to tell you guys, I think I'm on Team Push Bros, because I think that right now, we really are, feeling the bottom, feeling the turn of the corner. Now, I should say that there are much smarter people than me that are talking about, finance and macroeconomy and all of those things, and talking about how, we are still going to be entering a major recession. Unemployment hasn't even hit super high yet, and all of those things and all those factors. But on the flip side of it, it seems like we might be at the terminal interest rate. The Fed is not really, or the market is predicting that the Fed is not going to hike anymore. Currently, inflation is at, 3.2% or 3.4%. It's a little bit stickier now, but, the Fed only wants to go to 2%, and maybe they feel like they can get to that 2% mark, based on the current rate that we're at right now, which is 5.5%. So, we could have already sort of felt the biggest pains out there in the comic book market. Again, there was a lot of that fear going on, specifically all the way back in, October of 2022. And then, all throughout, this current calendar year, a lot of people, dumping those books, selling all those AF-15s. Again, I may mention this video or other videos here on the channel where, finally, we don't see AF-15s popping up, as much as we used to. We don't see a lot of liquidation of these major keys. And that could be a good indication that now, that supply side has gone down. People have decided to stop selling, and the demand side is going to start to percolate once again. On top of all that, you had the S&P pumping, you got Bitcoin and Ethereum pumping. I've made mention in index videos before the correlation between crypto and comic book values. I mean, if you guys don't know, in the crypto market, that stuff is absolutely pumping. I mean, it is, basically getting ready to hit some of its peak numbers in 2021 and 2022. And if we're going back to a place where we have a lot of crypto millionaires, well, you know what it is. I mean, they love their collectibles, and that could lead over to comic books. So here we are. I mean, I think that, there's still a lot of interest in comic books. I think most people have come around to where the market is, accepted where we are, and also for that reason now feel more confident buying back into things or making sales at purchases, that are at the value range that they were in 2020. So that gives a lot of the market confidence. And, people are starting to feel like, okay, maybe we actually are going to get that soft landing. Maybe the sky isn't falling. Maybe we've seen the worst of it in terms of the macro economy. And maybe now I can take some of my money and spend it on collectibles once again. But who really knows? Because in 2024, that could be the really, really bad year. I can't see the future. I don't have a crystal ball, but I do think that we are going to be entering that wall of worry, that stealth phase where people are like, oh, okay, I guess things are okay. I guess we're buying comic books. I guess things are okay. And then sooner or later, we're going to get to summer of 2024. We're going to get the Deadpool movie, and maybe the Deadpool movie is actually going to be good, and people are going to be excited about comic books once again. And you know what that means. People are going to be speculating. And what do speculators do? Speculators speculate. And we're going to see a lot of movement in our graphs. Anyways, that's all for this video. That was the update for the month of November here in the comic book index. What do you guys think about the numbers? Where do you guys think we are? Do you guys think we've hit a bottom? Do you guys think we're going to go sideways for a lot longer? Do you guys think we're going to start to trend upward? Again, in the month of December, we've always seen a little bit of an uptick, which leads us into January, which leads us into, the tentpole movie of the next year. And I got to think that that might happen again. Anyways, that's all for this video. Like, comment, subscribe. See you on the next one.